One of Spider-Man's almost admirable qualities is his iron resolve, which consistently proves to be the most challenging hurdle for his adversaries to overcome. Spidey's adversaries often have a strong edge over him, yet he never loses his drive to win. Spider-Man always manages to get back up on his feet, regardless of how many blows he takes. In many of Peter Parker's adventures, he has had to push the boundaries of both his body and his mind in order to triumph over seemingly insurmountable challenges. Spider-Man strives to succeed in all he does, whether it is holding buildings, vanquishing an adversary, or overcoming the evil that resides inside him. No matter what, Peter Parker and the other people who have been Spider-Man have shown they are not willing to give up without a fight. So here are the top 10 moments Spider-Man overcame the worst moments in his life. Spider-Man was committed to helping his aunt get better. During the story titled "If This Be My Destiny," a massive chunk of steel came crashing down on top of Spider-Man. He was so worn out from the last fight that he was unable to remove the steel from himself. Spider-Man continued his efforts, but after a string of defeats, he was on the verge of giving up. Aunt May's life would have been in danger if Spider-Man did not deliver her cure. So thinking about that, he used all of his might to push the steel off of himself because he did not want to disappoint his aunt in the same way he failed his Uncle Ben. It was agonizing, and it was just the beginning of his problems. As he made his way out of the hidden base, Spider-Man had to fight off thugs. In the end, Spider-Man prevailed and was able to save his aunt's life by delivering the cure to her. Spider-Man knew he couldn't let the Daily Bugle go down without a fight. A scenario that was seen in the final chapter shows Spider-Man holding up the Daily Bugle. In the sequence, he describes himself as holding up one support beam and hoping that the bugle doesn't collapse down about his ears. If carrying the bugle by itself wasn't already physically demanding enough, the New York crowds criticizing the wall crawler certainly made up for it. Worst of all, Aunt May was carrying a DNA bomb that was about to detonate if Spider-Man did not make it to her in time to stop it. At that very instant, Spider-Man bears the burden of the whole of his universe on his shoulders. Despite this, he nevertheless musters the willpower to prevail. He maintains the integrity of the bugle, defuses the DNA bomb in Aunt May, and rescues a large number of people, including some of the individuals who had condemned him. Peter was on the verge of passing away. Peter Parker battled the Sinister Six in Ultimate Spider Death Man of Spider-Man arc despite having a gunshot wound in his leg. Spider-Man had the option to escape and go to a hospital, but he chose not to because he did not want to put his loved ones in danger by letting the Sinister Six injure them. Even though it seemed that Peter would be okay in the end, the Green Goblin would not let the youngster off the hook so lightly, even if it appeared that Peter would. Peter was on the verge of passing away, but the young warrior continued to fight until the very end. Even though Spider-Man came out on top, the fight ended up being too much for him to handle and he passed away. Despite this, Peter was able to pass away calmly, secure in the knowledge that he had protected the people he cared about. Spider-Man was successful in stopping the Juggernaut. In the timeless tale Nothing Can Stop the Juggernaut, Spider-Man's everything to prevent the Juggernaut from hurting Madame Web was ultimately fruitless. Spider-Man was only able to partially slow down the Juggernaut due to the fact that the Juggernaut was so powerful. When Madame Web was taken to the hospital due to her injuries, Spider-Man swore a solemn commitment to put a stop to the reign of terror that the Juggernaut was causing. The subsequent clash developed into one of the most difficult battles that the wall crawler has ever engaged in throughout his lifetime. Nothing that Spidey accomplished was even somewhat capable of harming the Juggernaut. Spider-Man was on the receiving end of numerous heavy strikes from his foe, but despite the fact that the hits were fairly painful, he continued to battle while being on the receiving end of them. The fact that Spider-Man continued to fight until the Juggernaut was stopped in his tracks by cement demonstrates the extraordinary amount of persistence and stamina that he has. Miles convinced Captain America that he belongs in his team. In the Ultimate world, Peter Parker did not survive. On the other hand, Peter was struck by a bullet that was supposed to go through Captain America. This is how he ended up being hurt. When it was decided that Miles Morales would take over for Peter Parker as Spider-Man, Captain America voiced his opposition to the choice. The Captain had an incredible amount of guilt about Peter's death, and he did not want Miles to suffer the same fate as Peter had. It was necessary for Miles Morales to provide evidence that he was worthy of and prepared to assume the role of Spider-Man before he could do so. Miles was unconvinced by Captain America's persistent efforts to discourage him from continuing to engage in conflict with evildoers, and he continued to do so nonetheless. Miles fought against his own bouts of self-doubt, and in the end he was able to show Captain America and himself that he was up to the challenge of carrying out the responsibilities of Spider-Man. Miles' journey demonstrated that he had a fighting spirit that was similar to Peter's and that they were both incredibly similar to one another. Peter confirmed his position as the ultimate Spider-Man. Dr. Octopus took the guise of Superior Spider-Man after taking control of Peter Parker's body and used it to become the superhero known as Spider-Man. Despite this, Peter never ceased his efforts to reclaim control both of his body and the Spider-Man persona. Peter exerted a lot of work over a long period of time in order to return to the life he had lived before, but Otto showed that he has a tremendous mind and was able to defeat the hero. Peter did not give up on his attempts, despite the fact that the situation seemed to be hopeless. Because Otto lacked the mental fortitude that Peter had, he was ultimately unable to handle the responsibilities that came with being Spider-Man. After eventually coming to grips with the idea that Peter had a strong will and was in fact the superior Spider-Man, Otto gave Peter back his life. Peter refused to allow Osborn to influence him in any way. In Peter Parker, Spider-Man, Norman Osborn has been tormenting Peter Parker for days. The Green Goblin is responsible for causing Flash Thompson to go into a coma. The Green Goblin has also publicly accused Spider-Man of the death of Gwen Stacy. During the conflict between them, the Goblin swore that he would also take Normie Osborn's life if Spider-Man did not intervene to stop him. At that same moment, Peter let go with his very own declaration, which was, "I'll kill you." After Spider-Man had successfully battled the Green Goblin and was on the point of murdering him, he ultimately came to the conclusion that he should not do so. Peter fought against Norman's efforts to corrupt him and prevent him from being so filled with the animosity that Spider-Man would one day cross that moral line. He did this by resisting Norman's attempts to corrupt him. Peter's resistance to Norman's attempts to influence him resulted in the plan's failure. This fight between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin had been a battle for Peter's psyche as much as it had been a fight to save Gwen's honor. It was Peter who made the following observation: "Every day I refuse to hate you. I keep Gwen alive. If I fall into wrath or hatred, she dies for good." You had Spider Spirit Mans. The main character of Spider-Man, Fake Red, Yu Anome, was able to assume the identity of Spider-Man after tracking down the lost costume and web shooters used by the superhero. Yu did not have any unique skills, but he had a strong motivation to help others who were struggling and in need of assistance. It was imperative that he take on the identity of Spider-Man in order to put an end to the criminal activities. Otherwise, the lives of innocent people would be in jeopardy. Being Spider-Man eventually became a tremendous weight for Yu, and the fact that he did not possess any genuine abilities made this load much more difficult to bear. Regardless of this, he had the same dogged determination as Spider-Man. When it came down to the wire, Yu showed extraordinary bravery by going above and beyond his talents to rescue the lives of others. Even supervillains couldn't defend themselves from his assaults. At the conclusion of it all, the true Spider-Man lauded Yu for his battling spirit and referred to him as an authentic hero. Bullseye almost killed Spider-Man. In the middle of the action that took place in Marvel Adventures, Bullseye went looking for the wall crawler. Bullseye was familiar with Spider-Man's fighting technique, while the wall crawler was clueless about Bullseye's approach to battle. Bullseye purposely inflicted a life-threatening injury on Spider-Man so that he could engage in playful competition with him while he was getting ready to do the murder. It seemed as if Spider-Man was about to pass away, but one of his friends sacrificed themselves to save him in the nick of time. An enraged Spider-Man assaulted Bullseye, which eventually led to the assassin's downfall. Spider-Man had just emerged victorious from the toughest battle he had ever faced, yet it had been so close to being a loss that it was almost unthinkable. In spite of this, the web-slinger was able to summon the strength to go on fighting after someone he had cared about paid the ultimate price for their cause. Spider-Man defied the odds by fighting against fate. Peter Parker's demise at the hands of Anti-Venom was a foregone conclusion prior to the events that took place in Spider-Man: Edge of Time. But Peter was unable to bring himself to accept the likelihood that Anti-Venom may be responsible for the deaths of a significant number of individuals. Peter kept fighting Anti-Venom to the best of his abilities, despite the fact that he had lost some of those skills in the course of the battle. In the last moments of Peter's life, as he lay on his deathbed, he was able to triumph against Anti-Venom. Spider-Man 2099 was able to bring Peter back to life, but suddenly a new threat materialized: Peter Parker from the future. In the year 2099, Peter had been through a dreadful tragedy, which was the driving force for his transformation into a supervillain. Once again, Peter Parker from the present had to exert effort in order to alter the path that his future would take. With the help of Spider-Man 2099, Peter from the Rift was able to accomplish his goals of successfully resetting the timeline to how it was when it was first created. The events of Edge of Time revealed that Peter will continue his journey regardless of any obstacles, even fate. Tell us in the comments section below what you think was the most fascinating challenge that Spider-Man had to face and how he managed to conquer it. Click the like button if you'd like to see more videos just like the one you're watching now. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'll be waiting for you in the next video.